Hello guys, today I will be making my first tank review, and the way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna talk about the tank, in this case IS-7 in the garage first. I will talk about the armor, the gun, the weak spots, the playstyle, and then talk quickly about the equipment and crew skills. After that I'm gonna end it for this video, and I'm gonna upload roughly at the same time a replay of the tank so you can see it in action. So let's get started with the IS-7. First that I want to talk about this tank is the armor. Let's look at the numbers first. Full armor 150 in the front, 150 at the side, and 100 at the back. Turret armor 240 at the front, 185 at the side, and 94 at the back. You shouldn't just look at the raw numbers in the IS-7, because as you can see it has a pike nose, which means that it's actually kind of in 3 parts. There's the lower plate and 2 halves of the upper plate, and this actually makes the armor a lot more than the 150 that is on the stats, because the more the armor is angled and sloped, the more effective armor it has. And as you can see, the IS-7 armor is really sloped and angled. Same for the turret. You can see it's really round all around, so if you can, avoid shooting an IS-7 in the turret all the times. Especially from the front, it's really hard to penetrate if played correctly. From the side, you shouldn't really shoot the turret. If you have to, try to shoot at this part, because that's the flattest part of the armor, as you can see from both sides. And it also has the commander and the gunner, so you might kill those if you happen to penetrate that spot. But from the side, you really should shoot this part, because that's the most easiest one to penetrate. If you shoot any higher than that, this part, that's actually spaced armor, so you will get a lot of 0 damage penetrations. If you shoot at the tracks, they act as spaced armor also. Of course, you can shoot the first wheel and the last wheel of the tracks. The axle is right behind them, and always when you shoot the axle, you penetrate, do damage, and track the enemy. From the back, just shoot tension. But the front is the most difficult one for most players to penetrate, because it's all about the angles on the IS-7, and same for the IS-3, which is really similar, and IS-8 also. So this works for all of these tanks. What you want to do when you're shooting from far away and the IS-7 is facing you in a flat ground, 90 degrees at you, you want to shoot the lower plate. That's the weak spot. It has less armor and is less angled than the upper plates. But the problem comes when the IS-7 is angled like this, because then the lower plate will have more effective armor and you will more likely bounce it. But because of the IS-7's unique, well, almost unique pike nose, you need to shoot this part, because this part comes actually less armored when the IS-7 angles. Because when you're shooting straight from the front, it is angled already because of the pike nose, but when you shoot from this part, it's not actually angled anymore, so it's easier to penetrate. So when the IS-7 is angled like this, shoot this part. From here, shoot this part. Actually it's already when the IS-7 is even a little bit angled like this, you should be shooting this part. Right now, the lower plate. And this is only from a long distance. when you get a little bit closer, and especially when you're in a higher tank, a German tank or KV series or something like that, and honestly most tanks, when you get closer, you will actually be shooting from a little bit higher up, and as you can see, suddenly the lower plate is much smaller target, and it is more highly angled, so it is harder to penetrate. So that's why from close distance, IS-7 will be easier to penetrate in the upper plates. And of course, when it's a little bit angled, always shoot the closest one to you. So as you can see, it's all about the angles. Always shoot the part that is flattest from the point of view that you're shooting. When you're shooting from upper hill, shoot the upper plate. When your IS-7 is coming up the hill, shoot the lower plate, and so on. For the turret, you really want to avoid shooting that because it only has really one weak spot, and that's this commander's cupola here. But as you can see, it's a really small target, so you will most likely miss it, and even in some cases you might hit this small viewport here, and if you shoot it at the wrong angle, like this, if you hit the viewport right here, it just goes through and flies off from the other side and doesn't damage the tank. Of course, there's small viewports in the tank, like these, but those are really hard to hit, so only possible if you're really close to the IS-7, but then the problem is that you usually only have the turret to shoot at. So next, let's look at the guns. So I have opened the IS-7 gun, the 113 gun, the T110E5 gun, and the FV215 beans gun. Let's look at the damage first. IS-7 has 490, 113 has 440, and the two others have 400. So the IS-7 has the most alpha damage, which is always good in a heavy tank. But in the other aspects, the IS-7's gun is actually worse than the other tier 10 guns. Penetration is almost the same in all of them, just small differences, which really don't mean much in game. But if you look at the penetration with gold ammo, that's where there's a lot of difference. IS-7 has 303, 113 has 400, and the E5 has 381, FV has 352. So with gold ammo, the others have really big advantage over the IS-7. But to be honest, in random games, the gold ammo of every tank is good enough to penetrate any tank you want. Just the other tanks will have a little bit easier time than the IS-7. Small detail, but some may want to have more penetration with gold ammo. Rate of fire, the IS-7 has the worst rate of fire. The others actually have as good or better DPM because of this, and DPM is damage per minute for those that don't know. And accuracy is a lot worse than the others, not just the accuracy but the aiming time. And overall, the gun on the IS-7 is a little bit worse than these other guns, but it's still better than some of the other tier 10 guns, like the one on the mouse. But the German tanks and the M50B are special cases because they play a lot differently than the other tier 10s. And let's look at the crew skills and equipment next. Oh, one thing I completely forgot to mention about the stats of the IS-7 is the speed and traverse speed. Speed limit is 50. It only reaches that in a long flat ground or downhill, but it's still on the faster side of the heavies. The traverse speed is 28 and turret traverse speed is 25, which are good for a heavy tank. Some have even faster than that, but that's more than enough for heavy tank, and they come very handy in close combat. Okay, let's look at the equipment. I have large caliber tank gun armor, vertical stabilizer, and enhanced gun lay drive. Because the IS-7 has the worst aiming time and the worst rate of fire of the normal guns of the tier 10s, I want to, well, catch up a little bit, so that's why I have the tank gun armor and those equipment. It really comes in handy with the IS-7, makes a huge difference, especially when you look at the crew skills that I have. But first of all, I have auto reverse, really useful in heavy tank always. I can't play without that anymore. And then I have 6 sense on the commander, really useful skill in any tank also. But then gunner, snapshot, driver, smooth ride, and if you look what those skills say, the skill is more effective when combined with the vertical stabilizer. Same deal with the smooth ride. And because I do have the vertical stabilizer, these skills and the vertical stabilizer and enhanced gun layer drive give a huge boost to the aiming time of the tank. Because the vertical stabilizer and the skills, even if they give you more accuracy while on the move, they actually give you more faster aiming time, because the aiming circle is smaller to start with. And well, that's it for the crew skills and the equipment. Now for the playstyle of this tank, and this is only my playstyle, but when you look at the gun and the armor and overall stats of the tank, you might guess that you want to play it quite close to the enemy, because the gun is not that accurate and you have much easier time shooting the tanks if they're close. And also it has overall very good armor, even on the side, that it can play close, and if you play it correctly, that if you are very close to the enemy will have only this to shoot at you, and well, that's guaranteed a lot of bounces unless the enemy is using cold ammo. And if you get really close to the enemy, you can face hack them or side hack them, and they can only see your turret, and that's the only thing they can penetrate. And if you keep moving, it's really hard to hit. So close combats, it is for the IS-7. That's all I can say about it. And more experience you get in it, more easier it will come to position yourself correctly and do the right things. Usually the enemies start to panic when they can only shoot your turret and they start bouncing. But that's it for the cards review. I will show you a replay of the tank where you can see me playing it a little bit full down, and the close combat face hacking an E100, and see how that works out. I will put an annotation right here. If you click it, it will take you straight to the replay. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.